Okay, so we are live and we're going to watch another episode of Batman the Animated Series, and this one is going to be Nothing to Fear, which is the introduction of the Scarecrow. Now, one of the things that I was really excited about this show when it first premiered was seeing a lot of Batman's enemies that hadn't had a lot of media exposure outside of the comic books or media exposure outside of the comic books at all. Now, the Scarecrow is not one of those villains. He's had a decent amount of media exposure throughout the years, before Batman the Animated Series and after. So I thought it might be fun to go over some of that real quick. So I believe that the Scarecrow's first appearance in anything outside of comics would have been the 1960s Filmation cartoon, in which he appeared on one episode. Then he would have appeared in Super Friends as a member of the Legion of Doom during the challenge of the Super Friends season, and also had a memorable appearance in the final season of Super Friends, which would have been retooled as Superpowers Team Galactic Guardians in the episode The Fear, which would have been the first time I ever saw Batman's origin, interestingly enough. And one other appearance that he would have had outside of comic books at that time is that the Scarecrow would have appeared in a record released by Power Records in the 1970s called The Scarecrow's Mirage, which would have been, I think, my first exposure to the character would have been in that record. But interestingly enough, Power Records put out another story called The Scarecrow Corpse, which did not feature the Scarecrow. It was just a story about some vaguely Russian foreign spies that had dressed up a dead policeman as a Scarecrow. So pretty gruesome stuff for a children's album, huh? So in between when I would have first heard this record album, The Scarecrow's Mirage, and when this Batman the Animated Series episode would have premiered, I would have read about the Scarecrow in several Batman comic books and enjoyed his appearances therein. Most notably, the main one I can think of was Batman Judge Dredd Judgment on Gotham, which decided to forego what would have been the more obvious villain to have in a Batman Judge Dredd crossover, which would have been the Joker, Batman's most popular villain, and decided to go with the Scarecrow instead. And Simon Bisley did the artwork on that and drew the Scarecrow as being particularly creepy. Now, as far as BTAS goes, they weren't really able to get a good look for the Scarecrow, at least one that they were happy with. I think he looks pretty decent in this first episode. I actually like it better than the redesign they have in the second Scarecrow episode. But I think they really nailed it when they got to the new Batman Adventures, and they did the one where he's got like the hangman's noose around his neck, and he's really creepy. So anyway, without further ado, let's go ahead and start this episode, shall we? So there we got the Warner Brothers logo, dissolves into a blimp. The very cool Art Deco design of Gotham City. We got our shifty-eyed henchman. We got the explosion. Got the really cool music. Got the Danny Elfman Batman theme coming up. Not quite here yet, though. There we go. I do think that the 1989 movie was obviously a bit of an influence on this, but they took it in a different direction, I think. Like their own sort of direction. But it's one of those things where I kind of feel like it's the sort of thing where it's like different people coming up with different solutions to the same questions, if that makes any sense. So that's a pretty cool title card with the silhouette of the Scarecrow and the glowing eyes and mouth. It really makes you think of what it might be like to be exposed to the Scarecrow's fear toxin. The orange sky here It's a sunset. Looks really cool. And the orange colors bring to mind fall and harvest and other things associated with scarecrows. So that's pretty cool.
It's a tragedy often happen at the university.
That sounds like Kevin Conroy. This guy's a jerk.
Dr. Long, I'm Summer Gleason with Gotham Insider. Can I ask you a few questions about the recent robbery?
All right, but I'm in a hurry.
Dr. Long, do you have any idea why someone would want to destroy the
I
university?
hate this guy.
No,
I really hate this guy.
and students will be afraid to set foot on this campus. Hello, Summer.
Bruce, what a pleasant surprise.
There's another great-looking 1940s type henchman.
Dr. Long,
Your father and I attend the university together. He has big plans for you. Well, I guess it's pleased. Wayne Industries is more prosperous than ever. Please, when your father was alive, Wayne was a name that commanded great respect. Now all Wayne stands for is a self-centered, jet-setting playboy. It's lucky your father didn't live to see what you've done to his good name.
Ooh, his cornflakes.
wait, Dr. Long, I haven't finished.
Yeah, you see why I hate this guy?
You just vented the room about what's happening to the university.
No excuse. Oh, poor Bruce. Look at that's some good acting with the animation there. That hit him hard. That hit him harder than any supervillain possibly could have. I've seen Bane break his back, and it doesn't look like it hurt that man to the core like that jerk's words did. Tiny Toon Adventures is a very popular comic book in the Batman the Animated Series universe. Oh, it's Aunt June. Hi, Aunt June. How you doing? And here comes the Scarecrow. We get a nice slow build up to the reveal. I like this design better, like I said, than the second one, where it just looks like he has a sack over his head, and the other one looks like just kind of too cartoonish for me. So much like in the comic book, Scarecrow has a type of gas that makes you hallucinate your greatest fear. Some of them are more, yeah, I'm pretty tired too. I'm probably going to take a nap after I finish watching this episode. But yeah, like his gas will trigger your greatest fear. Sometimes he has gas that triggers specific fears. Like one of my favorite Batman comics is I forget the issue number, but it was a team up with the Earth 2 versions of Batman and Catwoman. It was the story of how they became a couple, actually, and Scarecrow was the villain in that. That's another one I really liked with Scarecrow in the comics. And he has lots of fear gases that trigger different fears out of people. Oh, he wants to take that money, but Scarecrow won't let him. I think this design would have worked better if they hadn't have had his mouth actually moving when he talks. If they had just had his mouth stitched up. Getting ready for bed. Got up at 1 a.m. Wow. So you've been up a while. Yeah, I woke up around noon and I still felt tired, but I wanted to eat something and I wanted just eating some peanuts, and now I'm not hungry. But I figured I'd watch this episode and get it out of the way. For a skinny little fella standing up against Batman, he's got some big words. And there's the Danny Elfman theme again. I always like hearing the Danny Elfman theme in these early episodes. The flare lands next to the gasoline.
I told you once, but you must succumb to the fear. What hypnotist keeps the Batman awake at night? Come on, you freaks. My will stop.
He certainly doesn't treat his henchmen with much respect. I guess that's typical for a supervillain, but so you see he tore loose a piece of the Scarecrow's costume. That'll be something he can get some clues out of. But he's been exposed to the Scarecrow's gas, and now he's going to see his greatest fear. Now, usually, whenever Thomas Wayne appears, it's Kevin Conroy also doing the voice of Thomas Wayne. But to me, that one sounds much more like Richard Mall, which kind of makes sense because it's not the real Thomas Wayne. It's like this nightmare hallucination of Thomas Wayne. Actually, this episode might make it a lot more sense if it occurred after the two-part Two-Face episode, because then maybe it would have been like a subconscious acknowledgement of Bruce of his failure of Harvey Dent.
He's right.
Cops seem pretty chummy to Batman here.
He tried to torch the bank, but Batman stopped him. All right then, where is this scarecrow?
Okay, well, he'll be a jerk.
Oh, you made a commissioner's pet bat hero get away? What do you got there, vigilante? Looks like police evidence. Give it up. Now! Looks like I'm gonna have to take it from you. What the blazes is going on here? Blaze is right, Commissioner. It's attempted arson. Zorro here is withholding evidence. Listen. You were saying...
He has no idea of the significance of calling Batman Zorro. Bullock's one of my favorite characters. I always like seeing him. I like his sort of antagonistic relationship with Batman, and how eventually, he does kind of come to have like a grudging mutual respect between him and Batman.
But how come you hate the university so much? They tried to destroy it. You mean they kicked you out? No, you simpleton. Oh. I taught them. I was a professor of psychology, specializing in phobias. Inducing terror has always intrigued me. Even as a boy, I loved to frighten things. People, animals, it was all the same.
The younger version of Jonathan Crane kind of reminds me of Montana Max. Going back to the old Tiny Toons thing. Look at the design of those lamps hanging from the ceiling. It's like they just put so much thought in like some of the smallest details of this show. Oh, it's that jerk again. So it's all his fault.
So now, they will learn the true nature of power.
University Museum benefit tonight. That's a nice dissolve. And a picture of Bruce's parents. He's analyzing that piece of the mask. And there's Richard Mall again. Richard Mall usually did the voice of the Bat computer. Bruce is having a really hard time. Look at his hand trembling. He's hearing his father's voice again. He can't even look at the picture. He's got to put it face down. It's like they just can't get the emphasis on the word failed. Her looking directly at the camera, looking directly at Bruce. And then we have Clive Revel as the voice of Alfred. So this was obviously a really early produced episode, since he was the original voice of Alfred.
You know what? The Scarecrow drugged me with some kind of fear toxin. I never know when it's going to hit me. Having horrible visions of my father.
Oh,
He says I'm shaming the family. It's rubbish. I know your father very well.
says here.
I'm so proud. So I can super this.
Oh, he's so good to Bruce.
Yes. Thanks.
I'm not crying. You're crying. Shut up. There's that dickwad again. Oh, geez. What supervillain is it this time? But yeah, I do feel like this iteration of the Scarecrow is very visually reminiscent of the Golden Age comics. I really like that. Good.
His torture has just begun.
Awesome. Torture him more. Sure.
I am surprised. I thought you people enjoyed my time-release fear toxin. Welcome to everyone's worst fear. Isn't it invigorating?
Da-da-da-da-da-da. Much as I like Shirley Walker's Batman theme, it's nice to hear the Danny Elfman ones in the early episodes. And speaking of the Shirley Walker theme, I mean, you can use both. They're both good. Old enough to need my legs to climb this rope. Dark Knight Returns fans know what I'm talking about. You notice the gondola on that blimp is a little unusual. There's a reason for that.
Has been annihilated. Annihilated. Destroyed. Dead. Dead who's dead?
That henchman, I'm pretty sure, is Richard Mall. Richard Mall did a lot of stuff on this episode, didn't he?
Do it.
You are a genius. Oh, that's great. And Batman fighting this 1940s henchman on top of a blimp. I mean, that's about as Batman the Animated Series as it gets. And he's still gonna save this guy. Well, he's gonna try to. He wound up falling in the awning. He's fine. He's fine. But he didn't like reach for him, tried to save him. All right, here we go. This is one of the most iconic moments in the entire series. And if anybody ever quotes Kevin Conroy's Batman, it's going to be this line that's coming up. Here it goes. Yes! And he fights off his fear. Bruce, your father would be so proud of you. Alfred was right. They weren't really supposed to do broken glass on this show, but they did it a lot more often than than you would think. But how else was he supposed to get into that gondola? It causes a lot more damage than you would think. Oh, he's fine. He's fine. Remember the oddly shaped gondola I was pointing out? Well, check it out. He's got like a little escape glider. I like that whistling effect. I'm not sure if it's part of the score or if that's like what the glider is supposed to sound like. Oh, I'm really enjoying it. This is a really good episode. It's more than you deserve. I really hate that. I would have liked to see him blow up with the blimp. Is there any way we could blow up this guy and keep the blimp intact? I like blimps. Axis Engineering, we know that one from the Joker's origin, and of course, Star Labs is a standard DC Comics thing. Sure, you remember that from the Flash TV series and the other Flash TV series, and I believe it was created in Superman comics, I think. A little bit of that classic Batman the Animated Series smirk there. Hey, Jonathan, I was rooting for you, man. That guy was a jerk. He deserved it. Uh-oh. It's like Batman got there first. Oh, look what his greatest fear is. It's bats. And of course, Batman himself there to take him in. And he looks up at Batman. Yeah. But he doesn't see Batman as we see him. He sees this awesome bat-like creature, this Chernobog-inspired thing. This must have been an episode that they watched when they were doing Batman Begins. It obviously would have been an influence on the bat creature we saw in that. Wah, wah. I don't even think it's the ceiling fan is that strong. I think it's just he's just It's weighs like 90 pounds. Bruce there to lay the flowers in his parents' grave. I like with the sunglasses there. That's a nice touch. And then the Batman shadow, Bruce Wayne casting a Batman shadow. That's a very, very comic booky kind of thing. They used to do that a lot, especially in the Bronze Age. So it says Richard Mall is the computer, but he did a few more voices than that. Really, his credit probably should have said, computer / additional voices or whatever. I'm pretty sure that he was the voice of Thomas Wayne in this episode, and that one henchman, I'm pretty sure that was him. So yeah, that was Nothing to Fear. That was our first episode with the Scarecrow, the first of many. It won't be much longer until we get to the second Scarecrow episode. Fear of Victory, I think was the name of it. Let's see, what's going to be our next episode after this one? Oops, that's the wrong button. You're going to take me all the way back to the front page now, aren't you? Even though I just pressed. Okay, so the next episode will be a Clown, which was the second Joker episode to air, but I believe it was produced well before Joker's Favor. So that looks like that'll be the next episode that we have. Come on. So here we go. Yep, Be a Clown, and then Appointment in Crime Alley, POV, The Clock King. Oh, that's a good one. Last Laugh, another really early Joker episode. These are going to be Joker episodes that don't even have Harley Quinn in them, because she hadn't been created at the time that these episodes were produced. Eternal Youth, that's the second Poison Ivy episode. And then something I'm really looking forward to, Two-Face Part 1 and 2. They did a great job with Two-Face on this series. But then we'll have Fear of Victory. That's the second Scarecrow episode. I've got Batman in My Basement, which I believe will be our first Penguin episode. Vendetta, Killer Croc, Prophecy of Doom, The Forgotten, Mad as a Hatter, Cape and Cowl Conspiracy. Oh, that's a good one. We've got some good stuff to look forward to. And then Perchance to Dream, another one of my my favorite episodes. So, yeah, a lot of good stuff coming up. Be a Clown will be next. I hope you enjoyed watching along with me. I hope you've been enjoying watching along with me. And we will talk to you next time. If you did enjoy it, please like and subscribe and all the fun YouTube stuff down below. And we'll see you in the next episode of this for Be a Clown. Bye.